Custodian Calladayce Kesh stood upon the bridge of a Cobra-class destroyer. Named Vigilant Flame, the warship belonged to the mighty Battlefleet Solar. She lingered in the shadows at the back of the bridge, positioned at a spot where she could observe the actions of every crew. In this case, Shipmaster Lethwick stood ramrod straight before his command throne. It was to Lethwick's credit, Kesh reflected, that the man managed to attend to his duties without so much as looking around the golden-armored giant in the shadows. He was certainly nervous enough, despite his efforts to maintain a cool facade. Every man and woman present was similarly affected. Kesh could taste the subtle tang of adrenaline on the recycled air, feel the tympanies of their thumping hearts against her eardrums. They remained efficient, however, as one would expect from a crew judged worthy to form part of the Sol System's own patrol fleet. Kesh was exploiting that efficiency. She was willfully perverting the very selection process intended to ensure only the most loyal, obedient, and resourceful crews were entrusted with the void-born defenses of the throne world. Subterfuge was just another weapon with which she armed herself, the better to do her own duty. Indeed, Kesh mused, there was precious little in this galaxy that one of the Adeptus custodes could not employ as a weapon at need. This thought, in turn, spawned another, and moved her to speak. "Shipmaster," she said. Though Kesh had not raised her voice, the rich contralto carried over the efficient chatter on the bridge like a rumble of distant thunder across wind-swept grasslands. Silence fell. "My lady?" asked Lethwick, keeping his eyes on his crew. Kesh noted that the man's knuckles were white where he clasped his hands behind his back. "What is the condition of the payload?" Lethwick did not respond at once. Instead, the shipmaster turned his stare upon an officer in a starched uniform whose bionic eye connected via cabling to the cogitator at which she sat. Her fingers flew over her rune keys, and she muttered into her vox bead before reporting. "Classified munitions remain stable, sir. Stasis field steady. Magos Kleist reports 0 energetic emissions escaping containment measures." "In the teleportarium?" Kesh asked, directing her question to the officer. The woman palled, but retained her composure as she called up fresh data streams with swift keystones. "Magos Kleist reports the device's machine spirits are in robust collar, my lady. Power well now 97% filled. Levels still increasing, with acceptable tolerances towards 100%. Kesh nodded, then dismissed the bridge crew from her thoughts. All was in readiness. The teleportarium, installed on the Vigilant Flame by Tech Magi, who the custodian had then quietly disposed of, would be her delivery mechanism. She would prime it with metaphysical coordinates and data clavices so secret that the High Lords of Terra were not cleared to know them. She would then command the ordnance, stolen from a secret armory, to be placed upon the teleportarium's dice. And after that, it was a case of waiting for the crew of Vigilant Flame to deliver her into strike range, then triggering the teleportation sequence. There were risks, unknowns, even one of Kesh's punits could not avoid. The esoteric layers of warding around her target were ancient, the truth of them long lost even to those who sheltered beneath their aegis. They might overmaster Kesh's codes, eradicating her ordnance during transit, or triggering it and killing everyone on the Vigilant Flame. Even should the payload materialize on target, there might be shielding and containment measures even Kesh was not privy to. There were secrets that only the Captain General knew. It was likely, Kesh mused, that there were even secrets she did not. Some knowledge now resided only within the memories of the master of mankind himself. Even before all of that, there were tests of human will and ability to be passed or failed. She reflected, not for the first time, that it was strange to strive with all her superhuman ability and intellect to achieve a goal so utterly opposed to her life's purpose. None of that would stay her hand, of course. Such was the nature of her duty. If all of Kesh's plans came to fruition, In just over 3 Terran standard hours, she would deposit a compact cyclonic warhead upon the polished floor of the Emperor's throne room. In theory, it would then detonate, annihilating the companions and the Master of Mankind in the single apocalyptic detonation. Most blood games involved more direct attempts at assassination or sabotage, of course. Custodians have crept into the palace under the cover of falsehoods, sent hired killers of every stripe to attempt the deed, had sought to compromise high adepts, once notably even an inquisitor, to act as tools. A few foolish individuals even sought to sabotage the Golden Throne itself. All methods had to be attempted, no matter how esoteric or extreme. All defenses needed to be tested. There was no sense in the custodians shying away from any line of attack when the enemies of the Emperor surely would not. And there was a reason that Calladayce Kesh had been chosen to run several blood games. She had a certain flair for the grandiose and the unexpected. Over the next hour, the bloated orb of the throne world swelled in the forward vid screens. Clearance codes were demanded from fortifications hanging in the void, but of course, the crew of the Vigilant Flame possessed all the necessary passwords. Moreover, they were repeatedly questioned on their unscheduled departure from the patrol route. The cover story Kesh furnished would hold up. Fields of void mines, miles-long eagle-headed orbital cannons, flights of deep void gunship patrols flocking from launch decks of prowling carriers. The Vigilant Flame passed them all. At each potential check, Kesh sensed a taut expectancy in the bridge crew, and in their shipmaster in particular. Sweat beaded, near imperceptible tremors ran through hands and voices. Gazes darted evasively about the bridge. Faithful and dutiful as they were, Kesh suspected at least some of these men and women hoped with each fresh interrogation that they would be found. They did not want to follow her orders, for on some level they suspected them to be madness, even though they came from one of the Adeptus custodes themselves. They wanted to deny her, but were caught in a vice. They hoped that the choice would be taken out of their hands, that someone else would release them. A half-hour later, the crew's wish was granted. Kesh was warned before anyone else aboard, sensing a sudden Empiric's energy spike, coupled with a surge of overpressure and sharp temperature drops that pressed a teleport strike. Her guardian spear was leveled and armed before the first cry of alarm or howl. Armored shutters rattled down over exterior viewports, a futile gesture of warding against foes who had already boarded the very nerve center of the ship. As the teleport flare faded and a quintet of hulking figures were revealed, Kesh found herself fixed firmly under the targeting reticules of several ballistic grenade launchers. Despite staring down enough firepower to tear even her Gene Smith body apart, she could not resist a wintry smile. "Shield Captain Nicodemus," she said, by way of a greeting. "Kesh, my friend," replied the golden-armored statuesque warrior who stood flanked by 4 enormous Alaris custodians. His smile echoed Kesh's own. "It has been far too long. 873 days, 16 hours, and 9 minutes since this blood game commenced," said Kesh. "But now it is ended. I have another team deployed upon your teleportarium, disarming the munitions as we speak." Nicodemus shook his head. "Throne, Kesh, an exterminatus-grade warhead? Hardly subtle." And here you have it, guys. The first instance of the first female Adeptus Custode throughout all the editions of Warhammer 40k. So I know for the longest time people were up in arms about female Space Marines, but let's not forget that where Space Marines and Custodes differ is their creation. Space Marines are created through gene seed implantation and psycho-indoctrination of already prepubescent boys. So the gene seed only works on the male chromosomes, lore-wise, as of right now, that is. So because of that, through the lore, there cannot be any female Space Marines. However, when you come to the Adeptus Custodes, these are genetically created, I guess, humans. I don't even know if they're considered humans anymore, because they're created at such a genetic level where psychoalchemy and gene implantations are just rampant throughout the entire biological process, that they can be both men and women. There's no, oh, this part can't work because of the genomes and the chromosomes. No, none of that. The Emperor, at least back in the 30k era, created each custode individually himself. Now we know that the Emperor has been interred upon the Golden Throne, but the alchemical means of creating a custode has still been passed down, and they are being created. And we see here that there's no difference between a male custode and a female custode. Each is a warrior beyond measure. Each is a philosophical scholar beyond measure, I guess you can say. And we have an instance of Kesh here, who is running a game to try and take out Terra, or the Emperor, so to speak, just like all the other custodes do, these blood games. However, this one's a little bit different, whereas most blood games are kind of like they're running the gauntlet, trying to find out if there's any weaknesses in the defenses of the throne. She's doing it a little bit different, where she's literally trying to transport an exterminatus level bomb into the teleportarium and blow up the Emperor from his throne room without even having to step on the palace. Obviously, she gets past a lot of inspections and almost manages to do it, but she does get stopped. And Nicodemus here is probably saying what we're all thinking. She kind of went a little overboard by actually having a live bomb that can destroy the entire planet. But at the same time, the enemies of the Imperium won't hold back, so she's just showcasing that sometimes you got to take drastic measures to make sure the defenses are adequate enough. So this is some pretty cool lore. I actually do find this really interesting going forward, because it's not like it was thrown in your face like, oh, look what we're doing now, female custodes. Obviously, we've had female warriors of a main, I guess, playable faction, such as in Age of Sigmar with the Stormcast Eternals. There was a lot of talk of it for Space Marines, like I mentioned, during previous editions, but none of that's been confirmed or anything like that. But here we actually do have canon material of a female custode, and I think it's pretty cool. I actually would enjoy more of this for the custodes. I already know there's going to be people saying, well, why have female custodes when there's already the Sisters of Silence? And yes, I completely agree. The Sisters of Silence are severely lacking in terms of lore, playable models, and overall, give them a codex. Like, they need this to stand out and become better, because there's not enough lore and models for the Sisters of Silence. But knowing that the custodes can have females in their ranks, it doesn't change anything for me, because at the same time, if you have a custodian in full armor with the helmets on, you can't tell the difference. So I think this is pretty cool. Let me know your thoughts down below, because I know for a fact that this edition, oh man, the custodes suck. Everything about the codex just makes them horrible. I'll give you a quick rundown of why the codex is so bad. First of all, they get one less kata stance. So basically a third of our faction rules also got removed. They have one useless detachment, which is the one for the Sisters of Silence, because it basically means that the custodes are playing with only 3 detachments that are either not that good or super restrictive on how it works. Another one is that a lot of their stratagems got nerfed, which either they got an increase in command points of using them, or just they outright got worse than what the index was. The prosecutors lost battle line. A bunch of their named characters got nerfed, especially Trajan. It sucks. And on top of that, the points are just stupid. So Trajan went up points, but he got worse. How does that make any sense? Also, there's no new data sheets. There is a new model, which is the Custode with the spear melta weapon, which the proportions just look off. If anything, he looks like a League of Votan squat trying to join the Custodes. And then the biggest thing that kind of hit them is that they now are very much losing their tankiness. They don't have that 4-up feel no pain against mortal and devastating wounds. The only thing that can maybe allow them to have some type of a working codex this edition is maybe point drops, but that just means you're able to bring more custodes, but at the same time it doesn't fix all the rules. So there's got to be a huge revamp coming here, and there's only one thing that I could say is positive in this whole codex, and that is the custodian axe is now hit on a 2-up, but it's not worth losing everything that we did for this codex. So yeah, it sucks horribly that this female custodian got introduced when we have the worst codex maybe in the last 5 years, is what I've been hearing. So let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know how you're feeling about the rules. Let me know if this femstody, as the Warhammer players are calling it, is cool, or maybe you just want it to be forgotten and left in the dust and just have the custodians continue being what they used to be. But I, for one, don't have any issues with it. So again, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. And as always, it's been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.